Welcome. I'm Halcyon and this is Hug Nation. Today I want to talk about mask confusion. Wouldn't it be great if there was just this kind of uniform understanding and everybody was on the same page on the correct etiquette and safety precautions and policies and procedures about masks? Granted, we got started on the wrong foot. We were initially told when the pandemic became, widely understood that it was an issue. We were told, no masks, don't wear a mask, masks don't help. And so to have that shift in direction, I think is certainly responsible for some of the lack of cohesion that we've got. And then you've got world leaders, specifically the President of the United States, who only recently started wearing a mask. And so to have this kind of dissonance between what we're being told to do and what we see people doing, or what we're being told by official things and all this, it's understandable that we are struggling to all get on the same page. That being said, I have been surprised how much differing opinions there are amongst people who are legitimately trying to do the right thing. And one of the things that made me kind of start thinking about this a lot is I had a friend who posted last week. They said, look, it's not 6 feet distance or a mask. It's 6 feet distance and a mask when you're outside or anywhere. And that surprised me because that was not my understanding. And it made me really realize that the perceptions and the truths and the science that people are clinging on to is all over the place. So I did a poll and I asked people, hey, if you are 6 feet away from people and outside, do you need to wear a mask? Yes, no, or you're against masks in general. And the results were pretty surprising, or maybe not, depending on where you're at, but about almost twice as many people said, yes, you should wear a mask even if you were 6 feet away from people. It was 216 people said, yes, you should still be wearing a mask. You need to wear a mask if you're that far away, even when you're outside. And 125 said, no, you don't need to wear a mask if you're 6 feet away. So that was my understanding, was that you wear a mask if you can't social distance. And let me say that it makes sense that if 6 feet away is good and a mask are good, then both is better. I'm not arguing with that. But it's kind of like saying if wearing a condom is safe and using the pill is safe and using the diaphragm is safe, then using all three together is the safest. And while that may be true, it is overkill for the level of risk that I am willing to take, and I believe that I have discussed with my partners when that was something that was an issue to me. There was a time in my life when I was comfortable with the pregnancy risk associated with condoms. It's like 93% successful, which is not that good. But part of that problem is improper use. So just like with mask use, understanding how they work and how to use it correctly increases the effectiveness, just like a condom. I should say that condoms, if you're unclear, are like masks, except for your genitals. If you're wearing your mask on your genitals, that's also good, but you know what? Let me get back on track. So the way that, there's certainly people that responded to the poll that talked about the tyranny of masks and that they're ineffective. And just so that my understanding is clear here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong, the masks are to minimize your own transmission. I was surprised how many people had comments in the thread that talked about that, they wear masks all the time because they're afraid of blank blank blank. Not maybe afraid, but like if somebody walks through a space they're going to wear a mask no matter what because they don't want to deal with other people's vapor. Which, as I said, more is better, but my understanding, and I think the understanding that we're going on, is that you do this to limit your transmission. In the same way that in Asian countries for I don't know how long, if people are sick and they have to go out in public, they wear a mask. It's quite common. And when we saw the way that those countries had far greater success rates in containment, is when, the narrative of what we should be doing started to really shift towards mask, mask, mask. And now we're at a place where there's been all these different truths that have resulted in all sorts of differing of opinions. So one thing that I asked for in the poll was for people to share links. Like, look, just say yes or no and then share some links so we can not have a debate so much, but just kind of share the information that we're working from. And I believe it's the city of Alhambra. Their official guideline is even when you're outdoors, if you're less than 30 feet away from someone, you should be wearing a mask. But pretty much every other link that was shared was saying the masks are required if you're less than 6 feet away. And that's how I've been interpreting it, and that's how I've been understanding it. Understanding that the more that we're learning, the more we're understanding that outdoors with distance is a pretty low risk experience because you have to have a certain viral load and a certain amount of shared breath and vapor to contract the virus. Understanding that, of course, we are learning as we go, and we do not have 100% understanding, but we're trying to use our best science and to do the best we can. And I guess I understand the argument that, look, how hard is it to just overkill? This sucks. Like, let's overkill and do way more than we have to so that we can get reopen things as soon as possible. Which I actually think that's a perfectly valid understanding, but I also think, and practice, but I think that it is also important to know that's what you're doing and not just have the assumed understanding that this is better or this is the right thing to do. I think it's good to say, hey, this is what we've been told to do. Now let's all do a little bit more and not bring our frustration or resentment towards those that are doing what we've been told to do, or we think that's what we're being told to do. The poll showed that everyone kind of has a different story about what they think they're being told to do. And I'm talking about this less about to come to some conclusion about mask wearing, but more to just discuss and understand and be aware of how so many well-meaning people are operating from understandings that are different. So, one of the things I like what Penn Jillette said in discussing mask wearing, where he said, I can understand arguments why you wouldn't want to wear a seatbelt and you shouldn't have to. And I can understand why you wouldn't want to or shouldn't have to wear a helmet. But I can't rationalize why you wouldn't need to drive sober. Like, drunk driving is dangerous and wrong because of the risk that it puts on other people. And this feels like a similar situation. You are being asked not to drive drunk because of the risk towards others. And I think that's a great way of putting it. With that metaphorical lens, like, I understand that the safest way to drive would be to never consume any alcohol. But the official guidelines are you could have a beer and still not drive impaired. It wouldn't be considered driving under the influence. And I think that's a similar thing. Like, are we going to be angry at people for driving after having a beer? It's okay if it's your car and someone's driving, you say, hey man, I'm not cool with that. For me to drive my car, you gotta have nothing in you and zero. Just like any establishment, restaurant, store can set whatever guidelines they want. If they say you gotta wear a mask all the time and you gotta come in with a blindfold and a face shield and you gotta use a robotic truck to pick up your meal and you gotta sing your order, like, you can set whatever rules you want in your own space. But I think it's helpful to know where baseline is and then know that we can take that in the directions that we want of more or less risk undertaking. So to go back to the metaphor of pregnancy, there was a time in my life when I was comfortable with the risk of condoms, and then I wasn't. And I got a vasectomy because I was not willing to take on that amount of risk, which is, I think, a similar situation to right now. If you are not willing to take on the risk of the baseline, which is 6 feet away and or masks, then you need to take it upon yourself to self-isolate, to get things delivered to yourself, to wipe down and really go the abstinence route or the vasectomy route in regards to protecting yourself and others. I know that my personal practice is that I stay home most of the time. I leave the house to go to the grocery stores, to go on bike rides for exercise, walks for exercise, and I visit my family. Now, when I visit my parents, who are older, I've never gone in their house or touched them since this all started. I meet them in their backyard, and we will have a meal 10 feet away with our masks off, outside. And to me, from what I am learning and understanding, that is a low enough risk that I would be willing to put my parents through that kind of risk. Obviously, it's not zero, because how could we know what is zero risk? But it's low enough that I feel comfortable with that. When I'm outside on a walk, I always have a mask. And sometimes I wear it throughout my walk just to kind of normalize mask wearing. But at the very least, I have it when no one's around me. And if I see someone on the horizon or around, I will put it up, and then I will go in the street so that I have at least 10 feet and am wearing the mask. If I'm going through, there's a couple places where I might walk where there are sometimes like restaurants and people outdoor seating. If I have to go through that area, I definitely mask. And what I tend to do, it's not really intentional, but if I pass people, I kind of hold my breath. I don't know if there's any science that would say that that's helpful, but I kind of, like avoid contributing vapor as I'm, within that 6 feet window or bubble of people. Somebody posted in the poll that, and again, somebody posted this is not the definitive guidelines of science and law and truth, but it's someone that I trust, and they said that out of 7,300 cases studied in China, only one was traced to outdoor transmission. So clearly it's possible, but far less likely. Is that true enough to affect one's behaviors? I guess that's up to us. Yeah. I'm open to changing my mind. But I think that the scary thing for me is that we have this vast differing of opinions. And so many people are coming from their truth as the obvious one. And so even amongst people who are on the same side, looking in the same direction, who want the same things, there are these cracks of division that is super disconcerting as we are moving towards a landscape where more and more struggle is going to happen, more and more intentional disinformation and intentional division is going to happen. And the need to be unified towards a common good or a common healing is going to become critical. I get extra frustrated when I think about how optimistic I was when this all started and saw this as this grand opportunity. If you read much science fiction or read The Watchmen or seen, there's something about a grand enemy larger than humanity that has the potential to unite us. And initially I was like, this is so, the upside is going to be so beautiful. We're going to work together. We're going to forget our pettiness, and we're going to see that we have this shared humanity as we work together to minimize the suffering that this will cause. And boy, oh boy, that optimism sure drained out of my cells pretty quickly. And now I'm working on trying to find elements of gratitude, elements of hope in a longer term vision and a longer term view of after we process through and work through the anger and the suffering and the sickness. If hopefully we will get to a place soon enough that we don't fall into a place that we cannot get out of. So I guess I just wanted to say that, as in all things, I want to be responsible. I want to do the right thing. And I think that most people, if not all people, have that perspective. And I think that's a really healthy reminder that very few people that you cross paths with online or in the world, unless they're intentionally trolling, are aspiring to be an evil villain. They might be selfish, but I think assuming good intent and recognizing that people are operating from some aspect of their truth or understanding, whether that be warped by a Russian disinformation campaign or QAnon or who knows what, it's still, the intention is often what's best for them, their loved ones, and the world. So wear a mask. Because, well, then again, what does that mean? All the time? Every time you put on a condom, make sure you're wearing a mask. Make sure you're wearing it when you're outside your house at all times. Make sure you're wearing it when you can't social distance, when you do social distance. If you have some links to stats or studies or recommendations that want to correct things that I've said, I would love to see those in comments and share those with others. I think end of the day, we got to know what the guidelines are and do a little bit better, and hopefully with compassion, pull people, edge people, nudge people, inspire people to do what's necessary to be compassionate towards one another. Because that's what we all want to be. We all want to be good people, right? Don't answer. Let me believe that. Because I believe you are a good person. And I love you. As always, I am leading people in gratitude circles online in Zoom every day at noon and 6. It's really wonderful. I'm so grateful for the experience. It's like this practice that's helping me deal with things in the world that require extra effort and require practice to cope and to not overwhelm. So please join any day, every day, if you'd like. You can go to zoom.hugnation.com and link to the live room and learn more about it.